The following story has been brought to you by StoriesToInspire.org.
Very fascinating story. It's actually in Aleinu L'Shabeach. In the Sefer Aleinu L'Shabeach, I read it. And the story goes like this. There was a man who lived in Bnei Brak, and he had a grandson. And he went through the war. I think he had numbers on his arm. He went through the war. And his grandson, when he was very young, was sitting on his lap in shul. And he saw his grandfather put on tefillin. And he asked him, how come you don't have any hair on your arms? No hair. He had a beard, hair on his face, payas, nothing, not one hair on both his arms. And he bothered him all the time as he was growing up. He bothered him all the time. Zaidi, tell me, why don't you have hair on your arms? He said, listen, in mitzvah Hashem at your bar mitzvah, that be your bar mitzvah present, you'll get the answer. Okay? Comes his bar mitzvah. It's a true story. It's a ridiculous story. Comes his bar mitzvah. The kid totally forgot about the question, whatever it is. And he's sitting at the bar mitzvah in Eretz Yisrael in Bnei Brak. And all of a sudden this man walks in. Not a hair on his body. Bald, no eyelashes, no hair on his face. Looked like he came out of radiation, chemo. Everyone was short. That was the story. He must be a very sick man, and he's his grandfather's friend, whatever it was. And he came in, and the grandfather saw him walk in, and he got up, and they hugged and they kissed they were just hugging for a long time and crying together. And everyone's like, who's this guy? You figure his grandfather's crying because he's so sick. He looked like he just came out of chemo, and he's like, has cancer and not a hair on his body. And nobody knew who this man was. And the grandfather puts him at the head table, makes a chair for him, and says to his grandson, you want to know why I have no hair on my arms? Because of him. So now the kid was like, this is mitzvah after the bar mitzvah. We sit at a table, the three of us. We'll tell you the story. So they sit down. These two, grandfather, the kid, and this other man. And the grandfather says, the guy says the story. He says, we were in, I think it was Auschwitz, whatever, and he was a young boy, and they were together. They didn't know each other. They were together in a group that was brought into Auschwitz, kinder, young kids. And they stripped them. They said the Jews are full of lice and filth, and so what they would do is they would strip them. They would take off their clothing and shave off their hair, all the hair, and then there were these pits of lye. Lye is acid mixed with water, and they would dunk the kid in for like a second to delouse him, to kill all the lice. Pits of acid, unbelievable, and so. This guy, not the grandfather, the other guy, so he saw his mother, father, and all his siblings die in front of him. They shot him all in front of him. Their blood was running, all dead. And then they took him, shaved off his hair, took off all his clothing. They were all standing there naked. And then they went into this house, room like this, and they had these pits of lye. They would drop them in, come out, and then they would dress them with the concentration clothing. This boy just saw his mother, father murdered. The kids are all murdered. He's like, he had nothing in the world. Everything he had in the world was taken away from him in 1 second. He didn't even have clothing, nothing. And they drop him into this pit of lye. And they push his head under, and he doesn't come up. And this grandfather didn't know who he was. It was online. You don't come up, you're gonna melt. It's gonna burn you to nothing. So he ran over. He put his life in the danger because they could have shot him. He ran over, put his arms into the lime pit, grabbed him from underneath his arms, and pulled him out. When he did that, he burnt all the hair off from the acid. His hands were in there so long to pull this guy off. The grandfather burnt all the acid off his hands, and he pulls this kid out, and the Nazis don't shoot him, and he sort of holds him up on line, and just smoke coming out. He burnt his skin, he burnt all his hair off, he burnt everything off. And the Nazi was like, yeah, you can take him, he's going to die anyway. And he took him into the barracks, and he covered him up. And he should have died, but it was a miracle that he didn't. And he said to him, why did you stay in the pit? Why don't you come up like all the other boys? And he said, when they put my head under, I was thinking to myself, they killed my father, they killed my mother, they killed my siblings. They even took away my honor, they took away my clothes, they stood there naked. These were from kids. They took away my clothing. I had nothing left in the world. He says, and when I was underneath that lie, that acid, I was like, but they can't take away Hashem. And I'm just going to be here together with Hashem. That's it. And they looked at each other. They were young boys. And the grandfather told him, they thought he was going to die, but he said, not only were you with Hashem in that pit, but we're going to get out of this together. And one day, you're going to come to my grandchild's bar mitzvah. And the guy who had lost everything said, bar mitzvah? We're never going to get out of here. He said, the God that was with you in the pit of lie will be with you. Promise me that if I'm right, no matter where you are in the world, you'll come to my grandson's bar mitzvah. And that was him. And he came to the bar mitzvah. And he had no hair because from that day on that he was burnt all the hair off, it never grew back. He writes it in his Sefer Linu Shebeach. We don't even understand what this means, to be on such a level. Both of them. When I read the story, who's greater? Both of them. One of them was like, you took everything away from me. I have nothing in the world. You took my clothing. I'm naked. You took my clothing. So in that acid, he was like, but I have Hashem. I'm not leaving. I'm not getting out of here. I have Hashem. Right? And the other guy who pulled him out had to be tachon that one day I'm going to have a bar mitzvah for my grandchild. And you got to promise me you'll be there.
Enjoyed this story? Come again. Bring a friend. StoriesToInspire.org